Alright guys, so let's continue on with my Disney reviews, and next chronologically in terms of the Disney animated canon, the next Disney film I need to review is The Sword and the Stone from 1963. And The Sword and the Stone is one I watched as a kid, and I enjoyed it a lot as a kid, but as an adult I think it's fine. It's just not one that I typically go back to rewatch as an adult. I think this one works for me better when you're a kid. As opposed to some of the other Disney movies that are more, that could be for universally for anybody, kids, adults. I feel like this one is more for kids, and like because it's not as strong with like the plot, or it's just like it's one of those Disney movies where it just kind of like random stuff happens. So I could see as a kid enjoying this a lot. I still do like this as an adult. This is still a good, fine Disney movie, but in terms of like ranking the Disney animated canon, like this is definitely one of the weaker ones for me. It's fine, but it's just not one of my favorites as an adult. And the basic plot of this, if you don't already know, is that Arthur is chosen to be the one to pull the sword from the stone. I keep talking over myself. He's supposed to pull the sword from the stone, and Merlin, a wizard, comes and trains him with life lessons before he has to do that. And Merlin seems to have the same thing that Genie from Aladdin has, in which he can traverse any time period. Like, he goes into the future. At the end of the movie, he refers to televisions, even though it's not whenever televisions were made. So I think that's cool that Merlin is kind of like a pre-Genie from Aladdin, where like he can go to any time period because he's magical, and that's cool. Even though Genie does it better, this is cool with the Merlin character. I did like Merlin a lot. He's a cool character, and he's fun and enjoyable. And again, like, it doesn't do much to make it one of Disney's best overall. It's just really more careless. It's careless and fun, is really what I could say. Because there's not much of a plot. It's just like random stuff again starts happening, and then the villain, Madame Mim, who I guess you could call the villain of the movie, appears like in the last 10 minutes, and she's not really a villain. Like, she's just like an adversary to Merlin, and she's a magical being as well. So it's not like there's a real villain of the piece. Like, it really feels like it's just they had to put that in there to add a climax, but it's kind of haphazardly put in there. But I mean, it's still fine. It's just interesting. It's not like a very strong like story narrative in this movie, which is fine. But it's still watchable. But there are a lot of really fun moments in this movie. Even as an adult, I really liked the scenes of Merlin using magic, which is cool. Like him putting everything he owns in a suitcase, or having the dishes all clean themselves. Like, that's really cool. The animation is really great and fluid in those moments. And like whenever he's teaching Arthur or Newt lessons, life lessons, where like turns him into a fish, or turns him into a bird, or turns him into a squirrel, and like all these life lessons are learned, and they're really fun with how Merlin teaches them. And I also like that scene where Arthur is a squirrel and he's a little kid, so he doesn't understand that he likes girls yet. And then there's this girl who is a squirrel who comes up to him, or a female squirrel that comes up to him and tries her hardest to love on him. And then like he's like, "I don't get it. Get away from me." Like, it's really funny because it's what a kid would react to, how he would react. I thought that was hilarious. I really liked moments like that. And I really liked Archimedes, the side character, the owl, who's just this grumpy old owl. He's the side character, but he's really memorable, and his voice is very groggy and funny. I like how, for some reason, I like the way he says, "Who? What? Like, he just says it in such a funny way. And he's such a funny side character in this, and he's really a really memorable side character that gets forgotten in this movie, because, again, it's one of those Disney movies that people love, but it's not one that's, like, many people's favorites. And I could see if anybody thinks this is their favorite Disney movie, that's cool, but I feel like this is one of the lesser ones that people would say is their favorite. But there are exceptions. There's people who like this movie a lot too. Now, Arthur I like as a character too, but it's interesting that this character has like 5 different voice actors. Like, there is moments where this this act there, since there's 5 different voice actors, it sounds like in moments of the movie Arthur will talk with like his voice breaking like he's a little kid, and then there's sounds where it's like a teenager voicing him like with a deep voice. Like, it's weird how this one really, I think, had a lot of production issues, and it's like they really, again with the story, and not that much of a story, and Madame Mim's just introduced in the last 10 minutes. It's like they didn't care for the story, or they didn't have time or budget to make the stuff make sense, or to have like Arthur have a one fluid voice actor, because again, the voice actors for Arthur, one of them sounds like breaking their voice little kid, and one other one is a teenager speaking in a deep voice. So it's weird that Arthur has so many voice actors, and they also repeat this line where Arthur, he falls down like 6 different times in this movie, where he keeps saying, he always keeps falling down, and he says, "Hey, what? Whoa!" And like he says this line, literally the line is copied and repeated like 5 or 6 different times. So it feels like this one really suffered from like production issues or not much of a budget. And the animation is fine, but it's kind of dirty animation, if you know what I mean, where it's kind of like, it's not completely like perfected. It's like some of the other Disney movies in the 60s and 70s and 80s, early 80s, that suffered from animation being good but not being as amazing as like the ones before that came before them or after them. So this one really suffered from a lot of, I'm assuming, money or production issues, because there are a lot of issues with it. Now, the end of the movie, I do want to mention Madame Mim, who is the villain of the movie, where like she's in the movie for like 10 minutes, but I do like this character. I think she's really fun. She's a great adversary for Merlin. There's a really silly but fun, like, she's a really silly but fun character, like the Red Queen from Alice in Wonderland animated version, where like this character is just a whiny brat, and she's funny. Like, she's a full-grown adult, but she's a brat and like acts like a child, but that's what makes her funny. And the way she talks, or she says Merlin, Merlin, like she's just got this really funny voice, and I love the actress who played her. I don't know what her name is, but this character is really awesome, and again, an underrated villain, if you call her a villain, because again, she's just kind of an adversary. She's not really like doing anything dastardly or evil. She's just playing a magic fight with Merlin. And I do think that this is really clever and really funny. I do like how Merlin and her have the fight at the end, and I love the fact that Merlin wins by giving her a disease. The way he wins the magical battle is that he puts a disease in her so she's sick. So she's got like the flu. And that's how he defeats her. That's really funny, and I really love how this does that. So overall, The Sword in the Stone is just one of those Disney movies that I think is underrated, but also it's not amazing. It's not great. It's good. It's got good things about it, but it really suffers from not having a budget, or like it just suffers from having all these issues. Like, again, Madame Mim is introduced in the last 10 minutes, and no mention of her beforehand. Arthur's voice is played by 5 different kids, and he repeats his lines, like, over and over. And the animation is not great. It's fine, but it's not, like, breathtaking like the other Disney movies that came before and after. Because in the early 60s to the early 80s, Disney really suffered from almost going bankrupt, and Walt died in the 60s, late 60s, so Disney, the company, didn't know what to do. So this is one of those movies that kind of suffers from that. But still, it is a fun, enjoyable time. Some people consider it a classic, and I can see completely why. It's just not my favorite Disney movie. It's got a lot of fun things about it, but it just kind of suffers with like budget and like writing and stuff. Like, it's not great in those fields, but it is still a fun and enjoyable time. So I really do enjoy The Sword in the Stone overall. So thank you guys so much for watching. Tell me down below what you think of Sword in the Stone.